We are going to solve getting started with conditionals now, and we've already covered topics such as input, output, variables, arithmetic operations, and conditionals are the next important concept to master. If you want to build great scripts or even more complex programs, you will probably need to master this topic. You need to understand how conditionals work, and I think that conceptually, at least, they are pretty easy to understand. But as with everything in Bash, there are some unexpected things happening, and we will take a look at them. So why would you even bother with conditionals? Let's say you're writing a script and you want only users with certain privileges. Let's say only users with pseudo privileges to be able to run your script. How can you ensure that? You can put a check at the top of your script and see if the user that's currently running your script has those privileges. If not, you can exit the script directly and maybe print some message like you need to have those privileges in order to run the script. And the same goes for pretty much any kind of checking, any kind of comparison, so on. It's all done through if statements. If you want to see if two numbers are equal, or maybe if one number is greater than another number, if you want to see if a string starts with a capital letter, if a string contains some substring, you will always use ifs to do that. So that's the small introduction for this topic. It's a little bit more code today that we are going to learn as usual. So let's get started with it. Let's see how to construct those if statements in Bash. How can we write them? We start with if. If statement starts with if keyword, then we put the condition, and as with many other things, we have multiple ways of doing it. The standard way, or the first way that was introduced to shells, and it is supported across all POSIX shells, so not only Bash supports this, is to use single square brackets. And inside those single square brackets, you can put some comparison. Let's say you want to see if 3 is equal to 3. We know that it's equal. And then we have to put a semicolon, and we have to write then. And here we can write the code that we want to execute whenever the condition inside those single square brackets is true. For example, we can use echo. We know echo brings stuff to the screen. It is true. And now that part may be a little bit unexpected if you are coming from more modern languages. You have to also put this fi at the end. If starts the if block, and fi ends it. If you execute it, you get the message that it is indeed true. And if I would remove fi here, it waits for me to put it. We can just end it without putting this fi. It's necessary. Okay, so that's how you can do it with single square brackets. And with this comparison, it works perfectly. Alternatively, for integer comparison, if you want to compare numbers and integer numbers, you can, instead of using those equal signs, you can just use minus with eq, like equal. That works as well in Bash, and you can check like this. Then echo, it is true. So that's the first thing that might be a bit sorry. Yes. Another thing, so you have to put those spaces. You can't just the spaces in Bash are really important. In some places where you would normally put spaces in other languages, like in variable declaration, you can't put spaces. And here, in most of the languages, whenever you have if and you open some parentheses, it doesn't matter if it has spaces or not. Here, it matters a lot. It doesn't work like this. And what I wanted to say before I got this error is that you have those two ways of comparing stuff. So using those comparison operators like equal sign, less than sign, greater than sign, and so on, that you use pretty much everywhere, even Excel and other programming languages. And you can also use those abbreviations with minus. So for example, minus EQ, minus LT is less than, minus GT is greater than, and so on. But those abbreviations work only for numbers. So let's try another one. Maybe now something that's false. And 2, we check if 2 is greater than 3. And then we put echo, it is true. And it is not greater than 3, but it checked it still. There are no errors. But if I would want to use a string here, and let's say ABC is equal to ABC, then it doesn't work at all. It tells us that integer expression is expected. So we have those two ways, the standard way with those operators that are known across many different programming languages, and other ways with those abbreviations, but they work only with integers. Okay, then we have a way to construct an if block, but we can also put an else to it. So we can put some code that will execute whenever the condition is true, and some other code that will execute whenever the condition is false. How can we do it? Let's go back to working example. And here we simply type else. So those are those keywords: if, then, else, fi. Else echo, it is false. So I am now writing the code that will execute whenever the condition is false. And in this case, it is false because 2 is not greater than 3. 2 is less than 3. And yeah. So what can we do as well? Yes, I showed you that it works here with when we use the abbreviations. But if I wanted to do the same comparison, let's just get back to the example before, using the standard operator, then it won't work. 2. I want to see if 2 is less than 3. Doesn't work. Why? Because this operator, this character, is already reserved for something else in Bash. But we want to use standard things that we are used to. So people developed another way of constructing ifs, and that's ifs using double square brackets. And this way, it is perfectly acceptable in Bash, but it doesn't work across all the shells. And sometimes if you see an answer on Stack Overflow or Stack Exchange or something like this, they will say, no, please don't use this, this is not portable. But as we've discussed already, Bash is pretty much everywhere right now. And I would be really surprised if you would have a system that doesn't have Bash installed on it. Okay, so that's one difference between those two ways. And maybe we will stop now typing the terminal because we've already typed a lot here. We can clear it. The thing that I want you to take away from it is that there are ways to construct ifs in Bash, and there are multiple ways. There is this way with single square brackets that's more portable, that's the older way, and there is this way with double square bracket that works a little bit more like in other programming languages, but is less portable. And there are standard operators like equal sign, less than sign, and so on. And there are also those abbreviations with minuses that work only for integers. So you can say 3 minus EQ 3, and so on. Okay, let's build a simple script that will show us all those things together. Let us first create a variable. Let us call it string simply. It will be a string, hello world, let's say. And what can we check for? We can see maybe if the string starts with H. And yes, we are going to need an if statement, started with an if, then something, echo, and string starts with H. Just an example to see how it works. And here, what can we put? We can just put our string inside. We want to see something inside a string, so we need it for sure. And then we want to see if it matches a regular expression. And this regular expression, for example, could be something like this. It starts with H, and then we can have whatever we want. And this whatever we want is designated by star. And this first symbol is used for matching against the first characters in a sequence. So if this way of building ifs works correctly, we should see here that this string indeed starts with H, because hello world starts with capital H. And we can write the same thing here below with string using the double square brackets. And let us see the difference between those two approaches. We're matching against the regular expression. Then echo string starts with H. And we also want to see in which one of them we are. And which one of this? Here we would say just double square brackets. And here we can type single square brackets. See how it works. That's for matching against a regular expression. We want to see if the string that we are providing starts with capital H. Let us save the script and execute it again. And yes, the first one doesn't work correctly, but the second one works perfectly. We even got an error that this kind of comparison is not allowed here. They don't want it here. We can remove it there and see what will happen. And only double square brackets work. So it is advised to use double square brackets because they simply support so many more things, and they are working more as expected. And those ancient single square brackets, you will see them from time to time, but you don't have to worry about them. So that's a short introduction to ifs in Bash. There are more things to ifs, but we will be doing more problems from Hackerrank related to ifs, so we don't have to do everything right now. I think it's already a big introduction to the whole topic. And we can go back to the problem for today. We were supposed to read one character from stdin, standard input, and check if the character is capital Y or lowercase y, and if so, then we should display yes. So the similar thing that we did right now, if something, then echo something else, echo something else. And not else, we need to build another if. We have to check if the character is add, and then we want to display no. Okay. The input is a single character, and there are only those characters allowed, like lowercase y, capital Y, and so on. Output format, either yes or no, to the stdout standard output. So echo command, and the build an example for us. Oh my god, we couldn't see it coming. Small, not small, lowercase y, and the output is yes, all capital. Okay. So let's read the input from the user. Let's call it input, read input. And now we can build our if. We know that we want those double square brackets. This is the thing that we like. If input, and we don't have to care about any regular expressions here. We just check if they are the same. We can use an equal sign, and we are checking if the input that we read from the user is the same as what y. One more thing. We can do it in two different ways, but let's do it like this for now. Then echo yes and fi, and we could do it, for example, like this, that we copy and paste it 2 times, but we can also merge those two things into one block. And because in both cases we have the same response, so it doesn't make sense to multiply our code like this, we can put 2 conditions inside one double square bracket using logical operators like and, or, and or if we want to join 2 conditions. There are only those 2 options. And means that the whole condition is true if all parts are true. So for example, if I put here and let's write it here. This is and, this is or, and they're used to join and to put multiple conditions in one place. And if you are using and, then all parts have to be true in order for the whole condition to be true. And if you are using an or, then only one part needs to be true in order for the whole condition to be true. For example, if I say that I need to be a human and at least and have at least €1,000 in my bank account, then even if I am a human and don't have this €1,000 in my bank account, the condition is false. But if I use or, then every human will meet this condition. Maybe a stupid example, but that's what came to my mind right now. Let's put it here. And in this case, what do we want to use to join those conditions? We want to use or, yes, because either input has to be either lowercase y or uppercase y. And we can use else if, or we can just build 2 ifs. But maybe we won't start with else if right now, because it's already lots of concepts for today. And let's see if it works as expected. Congratulations, everything is fine. Submit the code and perfect. Thank you.